everyone, this is Rabbit as well, Animation Bliss, and welcome to another anime discussion series. So today's show that we'll be talking about today is the 4th episode of the Amazing Digital Circus. Now, I know that this video has come out very late in regards to this episode because this episode was actually released last year, and I meant to review this episode last year, but I was never able to have the time to watch this episode last year. So here's my late video for my review on the 4th episode of the Amazing Digital Circus. So the episode starts off with Jax accidentally breaking Gango's happy mask, and Gango is upset about this. Of course, Zubul ends up coming in and they decide to give Gango a new happy mask that's actually plastic and will not break, and Gango really appreciates this and she puts on the mask. And it was at that moment that Kane decides to put the gang into another adventure, but they all suggested that they wanted to go do something normal instead of being on a horrifying adventure like they were in previous episodes. So Kane decides to have the gang work at some kind of restaurant where Gango is the manager. And at first Gango was doing a pretty good job of managing everything and trying to keep everybody steady, but then as the episode goes on, everybody starts becoming very stressed out by the situation, especially Gango herself, as she starts becoming much more depressed as the episode goes on. And then Ragatha ends up getting stupid sauce into her eyes, which causes her to start acting drunk and saying mean things to everybody, and Jax is forced to not pick on anybody or else he'll get punished. And so everybody tries to get through this normal adventure without losing their minds at the same time. So what are my thoughts on this episode? I really enjoyed this episode. So let's talk about what I did like about this episode. So the first thing that I liked about this episode was the unique premise of this episode. So the fact that this episode takes place at a restaurant instead of at a fantasy-like place like in the previous episodes really made this episode stand out to me, because I was pretty interested in seeing what would happen if you put the gang from the Amazing Digital Circus into a more normal setting and see how they start reacting to being in a normal setting. And we get a very depressing episode as a whole, as everybody's miserable in this episode as they have to deal with long shifts at a restaurant, and also they have problems trying to deal with their own emotions and their own problems that they've been experiencing in the previous episodes. So yeah, I think that this episode was very interesting because it was a very different take on the usual adventures that we see in the Amazing Digital Circus, and the fact that they placed the cast in a more normal setting and we start to see the cast getting so stressed out by today's adventure was really interesting to watch. Another thing that I liked about this episode was the focus on Gango. So in the previous few episodes of the Amazing Digital Circus, we've been getting a lot of focus on a lot of these characters. Like Zubul had a couple episodes focused on them. Pomni, of course, gets most of the focus throughout the series because she's the main character. The last episode was about Kinger and about how he had to deal with losing his loved one while he went to the circus. And now this episode focuses on Gango, and it focuses on her struggles to remain happy throughout the whole restaurant experience, but she's actually depressed about the whole thing, and she's having problems trying to express her true feelings to everybody. So I do love the fact that we get more focus on Gango in this episode, and we get to see more of her character and how she feels about being depressed all the time while trying to find a way to be happy for herself. So that aspect of Gango's character made this episode really deep, and I really enjoy seeing that side to her character in this episode. I guess my minor nitpick with this episode is that there weren't a lot of fantastical elements in this episode. Now I do understand that this episode was meant to be taking place in a normal setting, so of course there weren't going to be a lot of fantastical elements in this episode, but what I love about the Amazing Digital Circus as a whole was seeing all these fantastical elements in the worlds that the characters get into, and the fact that this episode doesn't have that fantastical element, like it mostly takes place in a restaurant, did bother me a little bit, but not that much. Again, I do like the fact that this episode is a little different from the previous episodes as it takes place in a normal setting instead of in a fantastical setting. But yeah, I still would have liked to see a bit more fantastical elements in this episode, even if this episode takes place in a normal setting. And now a word from this channel. All aboard the Animated Social Media Express. Want to send some tweets my way? Then follow me on Twitter. Want to join our special animation community? Then join our Discord group, Animation Bliss. Want to see more updates on our YouTube videos? Then check out our Facebook group, Animation Bliss. Want to download on everything going on with this channel? Then check all of the above. And now, back to the video. But overall, I really enjoyed this episode. This episode is probably one of the saddest episodes I've seen, as it dealt with everybody getting stressed out from their jobs, and we get to see a more tragic side to Gango's character in this episode. But I do love the fact that this episode did something different from the previous episodes, as they have the characters being placed into a normal setting, and we actually get to see how the characters would react to being in a normal setting, and how their emotions get the better of them in such a normal setting. So if you were hoping to see the characters of the Amazing Digital Circus in a more normal setting, then definitely check out this episode. So those are my thoughts on the 4th episode of the Amazing Digital Circus, and tell me in the comments down below, have you guys seen the 4th episode of the Amazing Digital Circus? And if you have, did you like this episode or did you hate this episode? Please let me know in the comments down below. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is Rob, blog Animation Bliss, and I'll see you guys later. Hey animation fans, like this video? If you want to see more animated content from this channel, then please hit that big old animated subscribe button so that you can get more awesome content from this channel.